Alright guys, I hope you all had the chance to see X-Men Apocalypse, and if you haven't, well, you probably shouldn't be watching this video, because this is spoiler talk. I do have a spoiler-free review, it's right here on that channel, you have been warned. Now getting into this movie, I loved the opening sequence, because it was so different from anything we've ever seen in an X-Men film. It starts out in ancient Egypt, we see the pyramids, and people just bowing down, going like, En Shabanur, En Shabanur. And you see this very old and wrinkled apocalypse creature. And I was like, holy shit, why is he so old? And why doesn't he look like Oscar Isaac at all? But I love when a movie throws me some curveballs and they're like, don't worry, we will fill in the gaps for you. Just wait and hear us out. And you see they bring him into this pyramid and there is like this weird ritual. You see the four horsemen of apocalypse and their abilities shine through. One of them controls fire and you see them slaughtering people left and right because some people naturally are like, he's a false god, let's kill him. And then you see Oscar Isaac, but not as Apocalypse, as a normal human being who has a similar ability to Wolverine. He heals. And they have this guy laying on an altar and Apocalypse on the other side of the room. And they use this weird ritual to transform Apocalypse into the body of this guy, turning him gray, bluish, and iconic Apocalypse-ish looking. I was like, oh, that's awesome. But then some people manage to destroy the pyramid. One of his horsemen freezes him before dying, and boom, he's trapped underneath the pyramid, and yeah, he is basically hibernating. But then we pick up 10 years after the events of Days of Future Past. Mystique has become a hero, you know, she saved the president and people look up to her. Mutants look up to her and everyone's pretty much like, she's a hero. But I do believe they didn't utilize this as much, because as I said, Jennifer Lawrence in this movie reminded me too much of Katniss Everdeen. Hardly ever did she look blue and did she look like Mystique. I was like, what happened to Mutant and Proud? I mean, come on. But she busts out Nightcrawler, who was in a badass cage fight against Angel. Yeah, they were forced to fight one another. It was pretty much a freak show. So you see, even though humanity sort of accepted mutants, some people will be dicks. And yeah, they just happen to be Germans all over again. But yeah, even though Angel isn't really a fleshed out character, you saw him making use of his wings, you saw him using them in combat and doing some iconic shit that you know from the comic books. And I was like, that's awesome. She busts him out, brings him to Charles Xavier, who also gets a visit from Havoc, who we haven't seen in a very long time. And he also brings in a new student, who happens to be Scott Summers, his younger brother, because his abilities, you know, they started to kick in high school when he almost accidentally killed someone with his eyes. And then we get to see Eric Lencher, and that was the scene that I talked about in my spoiler-free review. The side to Magneto that we had never seen before was him being a father and a husband, and that was fabulous, because we all know Magneto and we've seen the victim, we've seen the villain, and we've always related to him, but we've never seen the father figure. And you see that he's actually a sweet husband and a sweet father, and he loves his daughter, and it's all awesome, and he started to work at the steel factory. I mean, come on, it doesn't get better than that. I mean, Magneto working at a steel factory, and he actually saves one of his co-workers who is about to get stomped. And what do they do to thank him? They pretty much rat him out. And that was the scene that was heartbreaking, because finally we got to see Magneto being at peace. I was like, this dude does have a chance at redemption. But no, they take him away. And you see his little girl, she feels uneasy about the situation, and apparently she has an ability too. She is able to communicate with animals, which is why the people who are about to apprehend him do something stupid and kill her and his wife with a bow and arrow. And this is the point where he just loses his shit. He kills everyone in a very, very sweet shot. And I was like, oh shit, that hits me where I live. I mean, oh man, that sucks. That sucks horribly. Then we go back to Egypt and we meet Rose Byrne again, and she accidentally wakes up Apocalypse. He stumbles upon Storm, and I thought that was a very interesting scene because we got a little glimpse at his power. Him just making use of his, I don't even know what kind of ability, but he just kills 4 people. It looks like he literally sucked the life out of them. And I was like, awesome. She's his first horseman. Then he recruits Angel because Angel lost his wings in the battle against Nightcrawler. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to make you Archangel. And I always loved Archangel in the comic books. However, I can't really say that I was a fan of his character design in this particular film. And Psylocke. She's this bodyguard to this really weird mutant guy who always refers to himself in the third person. And yeah, Apocalypse recruits her just like that. And I did feel that that was a little rushed. After that, she dresses up like a porn star. You know that one scene that we saw in the trailer over and over again where she slices the car in half? That is pretty much her moment. Other than that, she's just standing around looking like a hot porn star. Again, this is not me complaining because she is very, very hot. But Mystique heard about what happened when it came to Magneto and she contacts Charles and Charles is like, I haven't spoken to Magneto in 10 years. So he puts on Cerebro, he finds Magneto, and the great thing is these 2 actors don't even interact with one another during that scene. I mean, they're just talking through Charles's power. And immediately, Charles is tearing up because like, oh my god, this is what happened to my good friend. He had a chance at redemption and now, holy shit. And he's like, oh my god, please don't go with him. Don't go with Apocalypse. And Apocalypse is like, oh, I feel something. I want that power. I want this to be my new body. And he comes, he kidnaps Charles, and Havoc dies. And I was like, oh, this is dark. This is so hardcore. Oh my god. And then everything freezes. I was like, what the hell is happening? Is that Quicksilver? And it was. Yep. He saves everyone. He pretty much empties the entire mansion because it's about to burn down. And the soundtrack, Sweet Dreams Are Made of This, amazing. While all this happening, we get to meet Jubilee, Scott, Jean, Nightcrawler, and they're all spending the day at the mall. What I really loved about this scene is they're leaving the movie theater and they just saw Return of the Jedi, and Jubilee's like, it's nowhere near as good as Empire, but I guess that's what it is. The third part is never as good as the others. I was like, yep, you are self-aware of yourself. You are. But still, an amazing scene. And how cool is it that Nightcrawler wears Michael Jackson's jacket from Thriller? It's badass. But bad news are on the horizon because Stryker is back. And it was important to bring Stryker back because he hasn't forgotten about any of this. So he kidnaps Mystique and a bunch of others. So it's up to our new mutants, you know, our young stars, to rise to the occasion for the very first time without guidance, without Charles, who also had been kidnapped. And that's the scene that they shouldn't have put in the trailer. Wolverine claws? Yeah, that scene was badass. Jean is like, oh, there's someone in here. It's not an animal, it's a man. So she frees Wolverine and he comes out. He doesn't have a single word to say. His adamantium claws have already been inserted. He has machinery all over his body. And that sequence reminded me of a horror flick. He just went berserk on all of these assholes. And the way they made use of surveillance cameras and showed people watching in terror as he slaughters everyone, I was like, that's intense. That is Berserker Logan at his best. But Jean looks into his conscience and they do have a moment where they look at each other. And I was like, yeah, pretty cool, huh? You will want to hit that at one point. Not now, but maybe that's the first time you realize that. A little creepy. But he pisses off and that's all. I mean, Wolverine is 5 minutes in the movie, but these were some great 5 minutes. And that is the point that was a little underwhelming to me, because after that, it was pretty much explosion after explosion after explosion and Apocalypse being evil. But I did want to see more of his character, because at the beginning, the mythology surrounding him and him luring in the darkness, recruiting people was so interesting. However, after this, it wasn't as interesting, and it's really sad to say, but the Apocalypse thing about X-Men Apocalypse was my least favorite part. How cool was it when Quicksilver finally stepped in and kicked the shit out of Apocalypse? And it was so cool that he knew that Magneto was his father, yet he does not confess that fact to him throughout the entire film. He's like, maybe I will someday. maybe I won't. Because it would have been too cheesy if a family member shook him out of this. No, this time around Magneto needed to change just for the sake of fighting for the people who always believed in him. And he absolutely does. He betrays Apocalypse because he snaps out of it. He sees his friends. And by the way, Charles losing his hair, he loses his hair because he almost suffers the same fate as Oscar Isaac's character at the very beginning in Egypt. Yeah, he's also on the altar with Apocalypse wanting to enter him. So yeah, I like that little Easter egg. But Magneto stepping in, forming an X with metal in order to be like, I'm on Team X-Men now, was badass. And the relationship between Jean and Charles was very important and very, very welcome, I thought. Because Jean is essentially, she's his daughter. I mean, she was always his favorite, and they had a kindred spirit because they have similar powers. And that whole thing that we saw in the trailer where Apocalypse just becomes a giant and smacks down Charles, that is an internal battle. That was one of the mind-trippy scene that I was talking about. There was a battle when he tried to enter Charles' mind, and Charles like, you're in my house now. So it was basically metaphorically, but I did like it. But his utter faith in Jean, I love that. He's like, I believe in you. And Jean just emerges as this heroine, and she actually creates the Firebird. I was like, finally, we got to see a Phoenix reference, a straight up Phoenix reference. Storm realizes, well, all these horsemen, they're dicks, so I'm gonna help them too. Psylocke pisses off, well, people jerked off to you anyway, so you're not important. And Angel breaks his neck, he's dead, I guess. So they kill Apocalypse. And Magneto's like, I'm gonna help you rebuild your school for the gifted. And while some of it felt a little rushed, and I really didn't like the fact that we didn't get a proper resolution between Eric and Raven. If this is the last movie in the trilogy, I would have loved to see that. But the final conversation between Charles and Eric is awesome. It pretty much mirrors the dialogue between Eric and Charles in the very first X-Men. Like, doesn't it ever wake you up in the middle of the night that someone will come for you or your children? I feel a great amount of pity for anyone coming to this school looking for trouble. I love that. I love that exchange of words. I love the fact that Eric, even though he's all like, you know what, I get it, you're the good guys, I get it, I will fight for you, but I'm not gonna be part of your little X-Men boy band. And he leaves, he takes off. And the final scene, pure fan service. We get to see the X-Men. Storm is now also part of them, and they all wear their iconic outfits. And by iconic outfits, I don't mean the black leather-ish outfits that we know from the original trilogy. No, I mean the comic book outfits. Nightcrawler has the red stripes, Quicksilver being all silver-ish. I loved it. And who do they battle? They battle a Sentinel, of course, because they took the Sentinels from the 70s and brought them to their training facility. Mystique is there, and even she wears the iconic outfit from the comic books, and she's training them, and that is the final scene of the movie. But then we see something. Because it's a Marvel movie, of course there is going to be a post-credits scene. We cut back to the facility where Wolverine was being held captive, and some random dude in a suit takes some blood samples from the Weapon X program. I was like, oh, this could have been a great moment to introduce Deadpool into the mix as well, or make a little crossover, but they didn't. He just takes some samples, puts it in the suitcase, and it says Essex Corporation. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm a comic book nerd. I had no idea who this guy is. I googled him afterwards, and he's Mr. Sinister. Apparently, he used to be a Horseman of Apocalypse in one of the comic books. I don't know anything about this dude. And you can let me know in the comment section below, who is this guy? Is he badass? Because I do believe that he will be the villain in the next Wolverine flick. To me, if they stop it right here, if they say, well, this is the trilogy, we have now 2 completed trilogy. One didn't really work out, so we went back in time to fix it, and now we end it here. I'd be fine with it. Not gonna lie. So, X-Men Apocalypse. Have you seen it? And I do assume that you did see it because, yeah, I pretty much spoiled the entire movie for you guys in this video. Let me know in the comment section below, and also let me know about Mr. Sinister. If you know anything about him, fill me in. I want to know. And if you like what you see here and you want to see more, then just subscribe.